Welcome to What Are You Sporting About podcast, a podcast about business, employment, sports, and entertainment to help educate, support, and guide you to your next level. Here's your host, attorney Sivonn de Barros.
Hello, everyone. This is Sivonn de Barros, the protector of athletes, and I am back with another episode of What Are You Sporting About? As you have heard previously, if you follow this podcast, I'm also the founder and principal attorney of the S.L. de Barros law firm, where we represent 6- and 7-figure business owners and athletes in business. I'm super excited to announce to you guys also that I have a new book that's launching July 31st of 2021 called Athletes Making Moves. So make sure that you go ahead and register, secure your seat. There are all different types of tickets that you can purchase. So there are also free ticket purchases. You can also buy a ticket that will give you the book itself. So we have a special edition and the regular standard book. You'll see the link at the bottom of the screen, and we'll also put it in the chat. So without further ado, I have to introduce you to my new guest, Lucas. And I don't want to butcher his last name, so let me make sure I'm saying this right, Lucas.
Yeah, that's fine. Caneda, that's good.
Okay,
Very
that was
good.
perfect. That was perfect. So Lucas is a professional rugby player and also the founder of Uniqorn Incubator. I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on him, and then I'm going to let Lucas jump in and tell you guys more about who he is and what he's doing. So Lucas is a global team leader at the Uniqorn Incubator and as a professional rugby player in Sarlat Rugby. He grew up as a diehard rugby player starting at the age of 5. He also has suffered what could have been a career-ending knee injury, and then he moved to France and became a professional rugby player. So after a few years in France, he also joined Sarlat Rugby Team, where he met Dom Einhorn, the founder and CEO of the Uniqorn Incubator-Accelerator. So Lucas, thank you so much for coming to the platform. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself and what your passions are around rugby and what got you in this space.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for inviting me to the show. It's a pleasure to be here. A little bit more about myself. I've started rugby when I was very young back in Argentina. My mom just took me there and said, hey, go play some team sport. I've tried different sports, and honestly, I found best of them all, not just because of the sport itself, but the atmosphere and the family you create once you start playing. It's different from what you see elsewhere, and that's what keeps me going, and why I became such a fan about rugby. We say it's a big family, rugby world, and whenever you meet someone that used to play rugby or even a rugby fan, you can understand each other quite easily. So yeah, it's quite interesting in terms of sports. A bit more about myself. I've always been intrigued by investments, entrepreneurship, finance. That's mainly what I do and what I've done for the past time. This is why or how I also met Dom, our founder and CEO. He is also the president of the Sarlat Rugby Team. Through our incubator-accelerator, this is Uniqorn. We consider Sarlat Rugby as being one of the startups we incubate and accelerate. Even though the club's like 118 years old, we still consider it as a startup because when you identify the problems and the things that the club struggles with, it's the same as in the business world. Every startup struggles with the same points. Setting up a brand, monetization, marketing. So those are the key points we've identified. And in the past year and a half, we've been working very hard to start fixing them, start turning the page around, because we intend to make Sarlat Rugby very big. We have very good objectives, very challenging objectives, I would say, because we are actually a very small club in terms of French rugby. We are in what I would say it's fifth division, but we aspire to go into the second division in the next 5 to 7 years. And it's not just an objective per se. So we are doing what it takes in order to get there. Let the road be bumpy all the way, of course, because it's very challenging. But I mean, the adventure of being a part of this project is a thrill and exciting. So glad to be a part of it.
That's awesome. So you were born in Argentina? Born and raised?
That's correct. Born and raised.
Okay, and have you spent a considerable amount of time in France?
Yeah, I've been in France for the past 5 years, 5.5.
How was that transition for you in terms of culture and language?
Well, I should go a bit behind, probably. When I was back home, rugby was my passion. I've also did other things. I've studied, I worked, I've founded 2 businesses in the meantime, but I knew that rugby was my thing. That's what I wanted to do. And my dream was to become a professional rugby player. And I knew that was back in the day, just not a possibility back home. So I had it fixed in my mind that I wanted to become a professional rugby player, and I knew I had to fly off, go somewhere else. That's how I decided to come to France. Contacted a couple agents, managed to get a good relationship with one of them. I was playing in my regional team back then, and one day at 7:30 in the morning, my agent called and said, "Hey, you're still looking for a club back in France?" And I said, "Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about that for the past 3 or 4 months at least. There was no opportunities yet." And then he said, "Okay, I might have something for you. Okay, be my guest." And then a week later, he called me and he said, it was in the morning, right? And he said, "Okay, you're flying this afternoon." I was like, "Okay, that's quick." So I packed up my bag, said bye to my friends, my girlfriend, my family, and here am I 5 years afterwards.
That's amazing. We have a comment too, and it's actually from one of my friends, Joyce Osei. She's in the UK. And she says, "Thank you for flying the flag for rugby on your podcast with Lucas Caneda. Interesting fact, it started in a place called Rugby in the UK. I did not know that."
Yeah. Well, rugby was founded in the UK, so makes sense.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. So I want to shift gears just a little bit because I'm a former athlete myself. I never went pro, but sports, I've been in sports or was in sports since I was a little girl. And the older I became, I recognized the value of sports and leadership in the team dynamic that will help you to overcome certain struggles and issues that you may be faced with that maybe most people can't really find a way to come out of because maybe they don't have that same experience. And so in a nutshell, there's a resilience component that is created in the mind of an athlete. So we're conditioned to keep pushing forward, no matter how bad it hurts, no matter how tired you are, no matter how challenging things become, you are conditioned to build a resilience around all of the mental things that can take any, one down in a, normal sense. So my question is, does rugby provide that same character trait of resilience? And if it does, how has rugby taught you to be resilient?
Well, I love the connection that you make because it's one of the reasons why we hire rugby players here at Uniqorn. And we always say it's because they know how to take a hit and then stand back up and keep going. And why do we do this? It's because in the business world, nothing comes easily, right? Especially in the startup world, you need to be able to roll up your sleeves, put yourself into work, and keep pushing. And sometimes there's lots of things against you, and many people just say, "This is not for me. I'm off." They end up failing because they quit too quickly, or because they are not, as you said, used to having to face their problems and overcome them, right? So this resilience that you speak of, it's one of the things I love the most about rugby, because you need to keep pushing. We've all experienced bad times, tough trainings. You're in the sports world for all your life, and you know what it is to. It's minus 5 degrees outside. It's pouring down. I need to get out anyways, to your trainings, to your runs, to your sprints, and get going. There's no other way. And when it comes to business, this is the same challenges that we face every single day. So yeah, I totally agree.
You are so right. And, I totally forgot about the whole rain aspect, because just in general conversation with different people, if you talk about sports and having to practice in the rain, they'll just be like, oh, okay, you just get a little wet. But there's a deeper level of resilience when you start adding those additional variables on top of what you're already conditioned to do, and then you put another barrier in front of that. So for me, I ran track, and I can remember either practicing or competing in the rain. The track would become slippy, really wet and slippery. So you have to really make sure that you're sticking your spikes into the track so you don't fall. I ran hurdles. So you want to make sure you clear the hurdle, because you hit that hurdle, you're going to slip right off of it. Yeah. Right. So there's a mental component on top of the physical and natural barriers that are also created. And it just makes me realize that sports in those conditions creates a mental resilience that you can actually take into business, like you said, right? So it may not literally be raining in your business, but there are moments where you feel, or you may feel like, dang, this is a really dreary moment for me. This is so hard. I don't know what to do. And anyone who wants success as a startup, or whether you've been in business for a while and you're just, trying to find a different way to do things, you're going to have that moment where you have to push through. You're going to have to be resilient in that space. I still deal with that at certain levels of my business, where I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to do with this. But I feel like sports has given me the backdrop to say, okay, how do I condition for the next phase? Right? Yeah. What I need to do to set success.
And also it's mental preparation also.
Right.
You've talked about the track. I mean, I was pretty decent at 100 meters without hurdles. With hurdles, I suck. But without them, I mean, I play as a wing. So, yeah, I'm pretty quick. But as you said, whenever you start having struggles that you need to face, at the end of the day, you need to be mentally prepared to what you're going to face. So that mental preparation, that concentration, that you are handling everything, but you are inside the track. It's the same happens to us when we are playing rugby. I mean, it's when your head's on the game and the only focus you've got, it's what's happening on the pitch, what you should be doing, and all the rest, you shut it down. Those are the games that you can give 120%, 200%, and you can keep going, right? And sometimes I have this, like people around or supporters, fans, my family, say, hey, have you listened to me talking to you, screaming to you when you were outside of the pitch? You were right next to me. And I was like, No, I'm on my world. I mean, when I'm playing, I'm only there, and the rest, I don't care, right?
That is so funny because when I used to compete, the only voice I could hear was my coach. That was it. Like everything else I could not hear. I don't know why. I could hear my coach. It was high school and college. They were the only people I could hear when I was in my zone, and they could literally be on the other side of the track and I could still hear their voice.
Yeah. And nobody else. That's exactly it. I love it. That's because your head's focused at 100%. There's no other way to say it.
Yep.
That's the beauty about sports. I mean, when you manage to get into that level, everything comes easier, right? And then the way you can just that mental preparation phase, push it away into the rest of your life, into business, into your life. I mean, it's really a good learning process that I think everyone should do it a couple times at least. Being into sports somehow. I do like team sports a bit more because they do have the other side too about team effort, pushing hard, trying to pull your friends, following them so it's a bit more complex in that side. Because you can be the best in the world, but if you're alone or if you only care about what you are doing, you'll never succeed in a team's game. And in a business, it's the same. You can't be running Google without,
Right. Because I mean, you can technically try to run your business by yourself, but if you're someone who say you wanted to go and create a separate rugby team. That team is a business. You got to find players. You need people to recruit, the athletes. There are different operations that you're going to need. You could try and do it by yourself, but you'll be burnt out.
Yeah, I think, and the results are probably going to be much better if you do it as a team.
Right. Exactly.
And the journey, because I'm also all about the journey, right? I mean, this is not just about getting the results, but it's the journey. What takes you there? How do you get into the place that you want to be? And if you do it alone, I mean, you're missing a lot of this journey that can take you to the place that you want to be. Meeting exceptional people all around the way. Meeting people you don't like, but learning about different cultures. This is one of the things that we have here at Uniqorn, is that we are from 27 different nationalities right now. So we do this on purpose because we believe in diversity and how interacting with other people, other nationalities, cultures can only make you better as a person and as a professional. So, I mean,
I'm so glad you said that. So I don't know if you know much about this, but this podcast was inspired by a book I wrote with the same title, What Are You Sporting About? And that is one of the bits of advice that I give to athletes is to put yourself in cultures, in countries that you may not have thought about going to or being in, because it does something with your mind, right? It expands your mind and your perception and perspective around different things instead of being stuck in one little bubble, knowing one type of, people or culture. You can only think in a one-track way. So I love the fact that you guys, what did you say, 27?
27, yeah.
Jesus. I mean, that is amazing. I would be freaking in heaven.
Yeah, it is amazing. It is.
Yes.
I mean, I'm also, I love to travel. I mean, who doesn't, too, right? But the first thing I do when I go to a new place is I try to order some food from that place, right? We can all eat hamburgers all around the world, but that's not the objective of going to new places, right? So wherever I go, I just usually tend to ask the guy serving me, what do you suggest? What should I take here? What's different? And I mean, it's a learning process, and I only think that makes us better persons as a general term. the learning, it's very important.
Yeah, I agree. It's so funny you said hamburgers because I feel like every country we go to, my husband's like, "Oh, I want to try hamburger." I'm like, "Dude, no." So for me, as soon as I'm getting off the plane and I'm in the airport, I'm reading the language. I love language.
Yeah.
And so I'm always trying to speak that native tongue wherever we are. And it drives my husband crazy. He's like, can you just speak English? They understand English. I was like, no, they have, we have to try and speak their language. Yeah. I love that. So keeping that up. What's that?
I love that you mentioned that, because when I first came to France, I had a French friend back in Argentina. And I said, hey, I've heard bad things about the French before, that they being quite close. They don't like other languages. They kind of only speak French. And I was like, I don't know a word of French. What do I do? He was like, there's one thing that you should always do. Whenever you meet someone, say bonjour, that's hello, good morning. And then try and make the effort of speaking their language. But it was, I don't know nothing about their language. Just try, make the effort, and after that, everything comes easily.
Yeah, they'll help you. We've visited France. Oh my God, it's been a while now. I think it was 2014, 2015. And we have family there. And so the adults didn't speak any English. Of course, the younger generation are trying to speak more English. So we were able to communicate with the younger generation, but you still have to make that effort to speak the language to communicate. Now, the good thing is with the family, their family heritage and native tongue is in Portuguese. So we were able to speak a few different languages to understand each other. But what I recognize is when you do put forth an effort to understand people, and this is like a deeper level now, not just with language, but when you put in the effort to understand people, they will help you.
Yep.
It's
as easy as that. Yeah.
Yes. So keeping that in mind, though, because I didn't know this, and you told me about this, about the school of life, that rugby is often called the school of life. I didn't know that. So why is that?
Well, ever since you're a kid, one of the first things that you learn when you go play rugby is that anyone can play. I think it's the only sport in the world that no matter if you are tall, you are small, you're big, you're fat, you're thin, you're quick, you're slow, you can play rugby. There's a spot for you in the team, no matter what you do. And for me, that's kind of amazing as a sport to have that possibility to have, it's open to the world, literally. Anyone can play rugby. Of course, you need to train. But no matter who you are, you have a spot on our family, I would say, because rugby is our family. And then the other thing I do love about rugby is that it focuses a lot on who you are as a person, what values do you need to have in life. And it might be a bit old school, but good coaches when you were a kid were not focusing on rugby itself, but they were focusing in teaching you to be humble, in teaching you to be friendly, in teaching you manners. Things that some people might have forgotten over time.
Come on, because you saying a word, honey. You saying a word for the people today. I had a guest on this show who talks about character traits. If you have a chance, go and look at that episode. It's by Mr. Harry Swain. And you are so right. And before, coaching was about coaching the entire individual, not just coaching the individual as an athlete for that team for a particular result. It was the entire person. So I never knew, though. See, I don't follow rugby like that. I don't know many people who play rugby, but I did not know that rugby had these beautiful lessons that are integrated into the sport, which would give it that nickname, the School of Life. So that is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think it's what I love the most about rugby. And if you go back to my friends, my lifetime friends. I know that some of them I haven't seen them much in the past 5 years because I'm all over the world. But they're my friends, right? And why? Because I've been playing rugby with them since I was 5. Some of them came in later, but they are part of the family too.
Yeah.
And the beauty about rugby is that we all end up, I would say, speaking the same language. Yeah, they might call us a bit, the weirdos or whatever you want to say. But, I mean, if you go to any of our dinners or barbecues back home, I would say 90% of the time we speak rugby. And then, I mean, everything goes back to, remember that game that we were struggling, that you did that tackle and saved the game. And we can spend hours and hours speaking about that. And the beauty also about rugby is that you've been with the same team all your life. Back home in Argentina, there's no swapping teams almost.
Okay.
It's kind of once you go to your team, you 99% of the time you stay there. That's your home. And that's how I feel about my club back home. Every time I go back to Argentina to visit, I try to spend as much time as I can, because you try to give back. It's kind of some of the things that you've always learned. The coaches, the people that were teaching you back then, and now they do it because they love it. They are not paid to do it. They actually put money out of their pockets to help the kids come training. They go pick them up everywhere so you can just have some time with them. And then it's kind of I would say not payback because it sounds bad, but yes, I mean, it's trying to give something that I was given.
Yeah.
Trying to share my experience,
like paying it
good or
forward.
bad. Yeah.
Paying it forward to the next generation. I want to get these comments in here before we run out of time. So Joyce previously said that she loves the analogy of sports teams running a business and leadership. She says that Sir Alex Ferguson in Manchester United springs to mind. She knows it's not rugby though. And it's so funny because I've talked about my husband on the show. He loves Manchester United, and so she actually has a question for you. She says that someone once described rugby to her as a gentleman's game. They said they refer to each other as sir on the field. She doesn't know if that's just a UK thing.
That's a funny one. I love it, by the way. And I would say that it's a gentleman's game because whatever happens on the field stays on the field.
Ooh, come on now.
And as soon as the game ends, I can shake everyone's hands, no matter what happened during the game. And we can drink a beer together afterwards. And we'll be friends.
True sportsmanship. And based on that too, it teaches you, or just athletes in general around rugby, how to deal with conflict. Right? So if you're playing another team, you don't like each other while you're playing because you're trying to win the game. You're trying to make a score. But it means that you settle your differences on the field and it's over. Right? Yeah. So you're not taking the hate, so to speak, into your everyday life and allowing that to shape the way that you see everything else or the way that you deal with that particular individual. So I absolutely love this conversation. I've learned so much, Lucas. So much.
Thank you. I mean, I'm thrilled to be speaking to you too. As an athlete yourself, I think we understand each other pretty well. Yeah. And there's lots of connections. And I mean, that's what makes this talk very interesting for us and for most of the people listening. But yeah, I mean, it's a pleasure to be here, honestly.
Thank you so much. Before we check off, though, I do want to ask you this question. What does What Are You Sporting About mean to you?
What is sporting about? That's a good question. I mean, for me, it's changed a little bit over time. I need to be completely honest here. For me, it was always my dream. I don't know, but would do efforts that I wouldn't do for anything else. I remember when I broke my knee, probably one of the most interesting periods as a rugby man. I had a pretty bad injury, so yeah, ligaments off. I mean, it happens to a lot of us, right? So I remember that that was back in September, I think, and I was already thinking of what's coming next. So I knew that by the next season, back in Argentina, season ends around October, November, and then it starts back up in February. So I went to my coach and I said, "Hey, first game of the season of next season is against probably one of the best teams back in Argentina." I was like, I want to play that game. I was like, okay, but first you need to get operated, you need to get well, you need to prepare. Yeah, I know all of that. I mean, what do you need me to do in order to get to that game? And he was like, what do you mean? Well, before the season starts, you always have some friendly games, right? Back then, being honest, I was the sub-captain of the team, so I had my place on the team. I didn't have to fight that hard to have a spot on the team. But after an injury like that, I was like, yeah, what do I need to do? My question was, how many of the 3 friendly games that we are having do I need to play for you to put me on the first game? And she was like, you know the answer to that. I was like, no, how? Why? Well, if you don't play the 3 friendly games, you won't play the first game of the season. I was like, starting to count days, and I was like, but Pancho, he was called. I was, Pancho, that's 5 months after I get operated on. A knee surgery needs at least 6 months. It was back in the day when Falcao, probably your husband know him, the football player. He had his knee injury and he took like 8 months to come back. And I was like, it's almost impossible what you're asking for. Well, then you shouldn't be thinking about the first game of the season. Okay. So I had that in mind. I knew I had 5 months and 1 week to get in shape. Yeah, I did everything I had to. It's hard to say, but I remember a couple things that I did that when I spoke about them, people thought I was crazy. I remember my surgeon, he said, these are the exercises you should be doing as quickly as you can after the surgery. Say, okay. I remember going through surgery in the morning before I got my room, because I had to stay a couple of days at the hospital. Before I got my room, they put me on a bed on the corridor because there was no space, and I started doing the exercises. I was half asleep, half with
like medicated.
Medicated, yeah. But I started doing the exercise nonetheless. And when I told my surgeon that after a couple of weeks, he was like, dude, you're crazy. I mean, I just told him, you told me to start as soon as I could. Yeah, but that doesn't mean an hour after surgery. How come? That's as quickly as I could. I couldn't do it before. No, not before. Afterwards. But yeah, those kind of things. I remember doing at least 6 hours a day of rehab every single day of the week. But the moral of the story might be that if you do what it takes, it usually takes you to good results. Because 5 months and 1 week after the surgery, I was playing the first friendly game.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Resilience.
Well, it all comes back to that, right?
Yep, resilience. And I love this. I know I've said it, but I love this conversation because it further solidifies the fact that you truly have to know what you're sporting about outside of the sport, to have something that you're so deeply passionate about, because things could happen to you that can end your actual playing sport, as an athlete. But what keeps you moving forward? What keeps you driving forward in life? So thank you so much, Lucas, for coming on to the show. I want you to tell us, hold on. We have another comment from Joyce, and she says, thank you. She see how rugby differs now from football, which is soccer. What happens on the pitch stays on the pitch. I love it. Yes. So where can people find you so they can get connected and learn more about Lucas and the Uniqorn Incubator?
Well, you can always find me on LinkedIn. So Lucas Caneda on LinkedIn for sure. You can also check out sarlatrugby.com. We also have French, German, and Spanish site right now. And it's interesting that you've mentioned that you never know when your career ends and when do you need to swap to something else, because we've been thinking about that lately as a group in here. And we've kind of created two things that differs us from the rest. The first one being an intern project that we call Rugby Plus here at Sarlat Rugby. So what we are doing is we are hiring, we are contacting professional rugby players to become rugby players for Sarlat Rugby, but not just that. We are having them on the pitch as long as it takes for the rugby. But then once that's done, we are giving them a job, an actual challenging job on the business side, on one of our startups, on Uniqorn or someone in here, to start this working process experience, developing yourself as a human being, as a future, because you never know when your career ends. You never know when you want to stop, or you never know when you decide to go somewhere else.
Right.
So instead of just doing rugby or just working, why don't we do this both at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
And also one of the things that we experienced while we took Sarlat Rugby is that all the things that we've encountered, all the hurdles that we had to go through, are common to all of the rest of the clubs, not just rugby, but all the amateur clubs in the world, I would say. So we've recently founded a company, which is called Challenger X. You can find it in challengerx.io. This is a company, a SaaS, so that's helping other teams develop, finding their way, creating their brand, monetizing, and grow organically, as we did with Sarlat Rugby. And we are offering that possibility to them to become stronger and better. Our slogan is turning Davids into Goliaths. So we are taking the small club. We've proven that it works, because just to name an example, for Sarlat Rugby, we went from 1,500 followers on Facebook to over 130K last week. We are on the digital marketing space, so we know what we are doing, and we can offer that to other clubs that want to take a step further, become better at what they do, and get the help from someone that proves today that it can be done.
That's amazing. Well, guys, go make sure that you follow Lucas, follow the Uniqorn Incubator, check out sarlatrugby.com. Also check out their new venture, challengerx.io. They are doing such amazing work, and I love the fact that you guys are truly living up to the nickname, the School of Life. Thank you again for joining. What are you sporting about, Lucas?
Thank you so much.
You are welcome, guys. Make sure that you sign up for the new book launch, Athletes Making Moves. We want you to secure the future by protecting your name, image, and likeness. This is jumping off July 31st, 2021 at 1:30 p.m. CST time. The link is in the comments. It's also at the bottom of my screen. Make sure that you secure your seat. Again, my name is Sivonn DeBarros, the protector of athletes. Until next time, we'll check you later. Ciao.
Thanks for joining us this week on What Are You Sporting About podcast. Make sure to visit our website, prosportlawyer.com, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever your favorite platform is, so you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes or iHeartRadio. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you like the show, you might want to check out our book, What Are You Sporting About? Attorney Sivonn DeBarros is available for private consulting at sldebarros.com. And remember, we're here to educate, support, and guide you in your journey to success, because we're all sporting about something.